Good day. We are going to continue with the graphs. So in our previous lesson, we learned about the straight line graph, which is y equal to mx plus c. Then today we're going to look at the graph called parabola. Y f of x is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. So this is the graph. We call it a parabola or quadratic graph. So now here there are two things that are very important in terms of drawing the graph. So now the two laws that are very significant is that if a is greater than 0, then this graph is smiling. Then if a is less than 0, then this graph is sad. So now those are the two things that are very important. How do I know that this is parabola? I need to have the square. So now there are steps in which you can draw the graph. There are steps that we're going to look at. Step number 1. So now let's take for an example, you have to draw the graph steps. What are the steps that you need to follow? Step number 1, they're going to ask you about the y-intercept. Sometimes they can say calculate the y-intercept. Remember, you normally say let x be equal to 0. And then number 2, they're going to say x-intercept. How do we work x-intercept? Then we normally say let y be 0. Okay, so now those are the things that are very important. Here the x-intercept, they normally call it roots as well. They normally say roots. So now which means that here, this is where you're going to factorize. You're going to factorize. Make sure that you factorize or use the quadratic formula. This one, negative b plus and a minus, then b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. You can do that. The number 3, which is very important, the question can say calculate the axis of symmetry. This is what we call axis of symmetry. That is axis of symmetry. How do we get the axis of symmetry? Is the same as x is equal to negative b over 2a. That is very important. So from there, we're going to get what we call, that is number 4, which is the turning point. The turning point. So now, how do we get the turning point? Remember, this is what the graph is going to cut. So now we're going to say substitute the axis of symmetry, into the original equation. Then you will get the turning point into the original equation. Okay, then remember the turning point here, it has to have x, then y. So what is this x? This x is what we call the axis of symmetry. Okay, then there we go. That is how we can go about that one. Then we can go and draw the graph. I'm just gonna take one graph here, which is the graph, it's y equal to, let's just say, x squared minus 6x then plus 8. So that is the graph that we are going to look at. A very interesting graph. So now what we need to do, we have to draw the graph. Then where do we start? So now we're going to start from here. We're going to say, what is our y-intercept? Okay, remember when we said the y-intercept, we normally say let x be equal to 0. Then that will be y equal to, then we put 0 squared minus, that is 0, and then plus 8. So now this graph is going to cut at 8. Then number 2, we're going to say, what is x-intercept? Then we're going to say let y be equal to 0. Then that will be x squared minus 6x plus 8, it's equal to 0. So now we're going to say, what are the factors of 8? That will give you negative 6. So now when we factorize, you can go back into your factorization. That will be x here. Then we have the factors of 8. That will give you negative 6. We've got 4 and 2. Then both of them should be minus. Then we can say x is equal to 4 or x is equal to 2. So that is x-intercept, or we call it the roots. we call it the roots. So now if you have any question you can ask, then we can proceed. So when we proceed, we're going to number 3. That will be axis of symmetry. That is axis of symmetry. Axis of symmetry. How do we work out axis of symmetry? That will be x, it's equal to negative b over 2a. So now remember our b is negative 6. So I'm going to say x is equal to negative. That is the negative for the formula. Then I've got negative 6. Then divided by 2. Then my a is 1. Then the negative and the negative will cancel. Then I'm going to have 6 divided by 2, which the answer is 3. Then number 4 is the turning point. Number 4 is the turning point. How do we work out the turning point? So that will be, we're going to substitute. Remember, substitute x is equal to 3 into the original equation, Okay, into the original equation. Then we're going to say y equal to, what was the original equation? This is the original equation, x, then plus 8. Therefore, that will be 3 squared minus 6, 3 plus 8. Then you can use a calculator. Let me use my calculator to get time. That is 3 squared minus 6, 3, and then plus 1 plus 8, sorry. Then the answer is minus 1. Therefore, the turning point here, I have 3 and minus 1. That is the turning point. Then I can go and draw the graph. I'm going to use the very same thing to draw the graph. So that will be the graph. This is the graph. Remember, the a is positive. Then I'm going to draw it. This is my x. That is my negative x. That is my y. That is my negative y. Then I will have to start with what we call the x-intercept. The x-intercept, in as far as I can remember, it's 4 and 2. So that will be, I can just put 2 here, and then I can put 4 here. Then it means that this graph is going to cut here. This graph is going to cut there. Then now we have the x of symmetry, or the turning point. It's negative 1. I'm going to write negative 1 here and 3. So this is the turning point, negative 1 and 3. There we go. Remember, we're going to use the scale. And then what is the y-intercept? That is where the graph is going to cut. That is 8. That is 8. So now I can put 8 here. So now this graph automatically will just come here, cut there, then turn here, then goes up, then that is the graph. So that is the graph. So this is the graph called y equal to x squared minus 6x and then plus 8. Then you are done. They're going to give you full marks. Sometimes they can even ask you to really draw 2 graphs at the same set of axes. But however, here this is how you can draw the graph of parabola. If you can follow these steps, that is the only thing that you need to do. Step number 1, step number 2, step number 3, step number 4. Then you will get this thing right. So now if you have any question, then you can let me know. Then we can take it from there. In my next video, I'm going to really take a previous question paper, then do the graphs and answer the questions accordingly. Thank you, and I hope to see you soon.